So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode, I guess it's episode 3 of Vinyl Destination. Dally and I are very, very excited to have our special guest, the illustrious Mr. Jim Lindberg from Pennywise, Black Pacific, many cool things. Jim, it's so nice to see you again, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Right on. Great to be here, guys. I appreciate it. I'm number three.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're in good company. We had Todd from Propaganda on last time. So,
Oh, nice. We're doing some shows in Europe with them, I think
Right.
in April.
yeah,
Yeah,
my
yeah, you're doing the
the,
Resurrection Fest or whatever, yeah, whatever it's called.
the singer of my band that I have with Matt Riddle. Uh, I'm in a band called Fire Sale with Matt Riddle, and our singer Pedro plays guitar in the Iron Roses, which are one of the main support acts on that tour. So I'm
Okay.
sure he'll be hounding you for stories and whatnot when you guys
Yeah,
are
one
hanging
big,
out.
nice. One big family. We've never played with Propaganda. It'll be our first time, so that'll be fun. And Iron Roses, it looks like a good tour. People seem stoked about it, so
I mean,
that's
Yeah,
all we can hope
Comeback
for.
Kid is on that tour. Like, I
yeah,
bring that shit to America, man. Let's do it over here.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it should be fun. And uh, you know, uh, our whole Europe crew is a blast to hang out with, and we always have fun over there. And have the bread and cheese tour, and just hang out, see all the cool things. I don't think we're doing that big punk rock holiday this year, but that's always a wild one.
Yeah,
Oh
we're
yeah.
doing it. We're doing it this. We're playing it this year.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
Authority Zero is on it. We're actually playing. I'm playing with Propaganda for the first time too. Remember when I kind of teched for you guys a couple years ago with Red Bridge Fest? We're playing Authority Zero's playing it with Propaganda this year.
yeah. I saw that. That was a fun festival, man. What a cool
Yeah.
place. We've been playing Quebec probably more than any other place on the planet the last
Dude,
few years because they're just
Quebec
so
is crazy, man.
they're
Yep.
so hard up for shows up there, and they just keep asking us back. And it's like now it's like just every summer plan on being in Quebec from July to August.
Well, yeah,
Dude,
it was my birthday when we played there, and you guys, I went up there and played "Do What You Want" with you guys, and I was like, okay, you could just kill me now. I just played drums on one of my favorite bands playing a song from one of my other favorite bands. I'm like, okay, I can live and die now happy. I've already procreated. I'm good.
well,
Yeah.
speaking of Canada, I wanted to bring something up. I might have brought this up a long time ago when you were on my show, but I used to play with a band called The Reason that was from Ontario, and we did a very short run with you guys. I think in 2004, uh, Murphy's Law was on the tour.
Yeah, yeah, Jimmy.
And Fletcher didn't make it across the border, so Jason from 98 Mute was there playing guitar.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. That was crazy. I know.
Well, and
That was
Jason
awesome.
had Fletcher's like extra large Ibanez guitars on, and it just looked so funny. Like he sounded great, but it looked like my 8-year-old son playing one of my Gibsons. You know what I mean?
I know. You should see him when he has a Les Paul on. It looks like a ukulele. I mean, I'm not even kidding at all. And it was a trip to be looking over to my stage left and seeing a guy at normal size. It was very disconcerting, but it was fun doing those shows. It was a good time.
That's
Awesome,
awesome.
man.
A
So
lot less
So
damage.
what's up?
A lot less damage
Yeah,
was done on
that's
that tour. A
I
lot
well
more.
as a guy who's toured with you guys plenty of times, I know that way too well.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so this year is actually kind of a monumental year. It's the 30th anniversary for About Time, which is really a landmark recording for you guys. I kind of want to go back a little bit and just like basically talk about you guys get signed to Epitaph in 91 or 90. When did you get signed?
Yes.
Okay,
91.
so you guys released your first full-length record, self-titled Pennywise. You left the band soon after the recording of that or release of that. Can you explain to us what happened there?
Yeah, like anyone else, excited beyond all belief to be signed to Epitaph and putting out a record. It was a lifelong dream to do that. And Jason and I were writing a lot of songs coming from the PMA outlook of, positive mental attitude and also everything that was going on with the city of LA at the time. It was really violent,
Yeah.
lots of gangs. There was gangs going on in Compton and Bloods and Crips and all this stuff, but also punk rock gangs going on, and it was getting really crazy. And it seemed like after we started playing, a lot of those shows just turned into big gang fights and like
Oh,
really violent. And and then we played this one show at Raji's, and it was so depressing. And we had played a show at a Coconut Teaser that some gangs showed up, and there was some been stabbings at shows, and even though I had this dream realized of putting out a record and being in a band that was making some noise, I would just couldn't put together the fact that this we're singing about anti-violence and the scene was incredibly violent and it was just mindless dumb violence,
yeah,
just guys fighting for no reason or stabbing people, and it's just like this is stupid, you
yeah,
know and there was some other kind of racist stuff going on, and it just that show was so ugly, and the Raji's got torn apart, and the the club owners after the show, I had talked to them before the show, and I was just like, wow, this is a cool club and the history you guys have here. And then after the show, the place just got destroyed, and the owner looked at me and goes, "You guys are the worst people I've ever seen
right.
in my life." Like, and so with a heavy heart, I called up Jason and I just said, "I can't do this anymore."
Wow.
Other people said they thought I left to get married or different things, but I just left because the scene was ugly, and I couldn't put it together. So not to bring you guys up on a real downer, but that's the truth, and you got to
Well,
tell them like it is.
well, that's how it was. I mean, the reason why I asked that question is because it's obviously well documented that you left for a time, but it was never alluded to the reason why or a specific incident of why. So that's actually thank you very much for clearing that up because I've been wondering about that.
Mhm.
You come back during the writing of Unknown Road, is that correct?
Yep. And they had recorded a bunch of stuff, and they, Fletcher and Jason actually came down to my wedding. I had them out to my wedding, and they cornered me in my honeymoon suite. Were playing me all these songs, like you got to come back and listen to how cool the songs sound. And I was like, and I recognized some songs that I had worked on before I left the band, and they just said, "Hey, just give it a shot." And that was like Homesick and different songs like that. And I'm like, well, some of these songs I had kind of worked on the lyrics and melody line for, so I'm like, well, I'll go back and give it a shot. And then Fletcher, once I sang on about four or five of the songs, he said, "If you quit now, I'll kill you." So I had to take him at his word.
Well, you
And then,
mean that became a very landmark recording. I mean, that's an album that I still personally have to listen to at least once a week. It's a record that has meant the world to me as I mean, especially hearing songs like Nothing, as I mean, that was 15 years old when that album came out, and I'm like that was like just resonating hardcore with me. And
yeah,
I mean, it obviously it helped get you guys up there to the next level. You guys have sold like I think 200 plus thousand copies of it. And then 94, Punk Rock Explodes, like huge in that summer. I mean, I saw you guys at the Epitaph Summer Nationals in 94, and to not see what was going on around me, like, okay, my scene's getting big here. I mean, the fact that I'm seeing 3,500 people every day for 3 days at the Epitaph Summer Nationals was a pretty good indicator. Like, I had to buy tickets now the day they come out on sale instead of like the day of.
yeah.
So, I mean, you guys were getting ready to do About Time. I mean, so, I mean, obviously, this is very, you're watching all this scene explode around with you. What was going on through your mindsets at this time?
Yeah, that was an extremely confusing time because, um, you know, the songs at that time were coming really, really quickly, and then, but thematically, um, this is after the LA riots and different things like that going on, and then, but in the back of your mind, seeing that the scene was changing, and how is it going to change you? And also, this is right when the big thing of selling out started. This is really when the big thing of like you've changed. Like you're changing your sound to try and get on the radio and whatnot. And so we were really cognizant of that. And I think part of us on some songs it sounds like the same old Pennywise, and there's a couple more that are different. But I think on that one also I don't think we were like actively going like, oh, this song should be a radio song, but I think we were allowing for the songs just to be what they were, and like and not trying to like hardcore edit ourselves. And it was just like Jason wrote some really cool songs, a few of them about a lot about like making the most of your life, because a lot of like at that age, a lot of people, especially in the South Bay and everywhere in the world, at age like from 25 to 30,
Yeah.
it's really like, what are you doing with your lifetime? And a lot of people in our scene, there's a lot of people getting messed up on drugs, a lot of people, like wasting their life with that type of things. A lot of people getting into various philosophies and different things. And I think Jason, recognizing his own demons and things going on in his life, he was very much preaching to himself. And I do that as well, of saying like, you need to get your shit together. You need to do better. Life is short. We need to make the most out of life. And what are the things that are stopping us for that? So you have songs like Waste of Time, which is about religion, and and songs like Every Single Day, and Searching. And it's all kind of about, a young person coming into middle age and starting to realize that time is short and you need to make the most of it. And that's kind of always been our anthem, trying to put that out there. And it was a strange time, to write about all these different things and try and keep that PMA that we started out with.
I'd like to ask you, I'm a huge fan of The Other F Word, which that documentary like really it spoke to me. Like I didn't have my first child till I was 37 years old. So I mean, seeing that and always being into punk rock and most of my life I was on the road, you know what I mean? And then seeing you struggle with that, but then also hearing about you quitting early on and then rejoining. And I'm friends with Randy. I've spoken to him on my show and just in passing, and some of the partying and the stuff that Fletcher does. And you've always seemed like maybe the odd one out, and I was always kind of that way in the bands I was in. I've never been a big drinker. I've never been into any you know drugs, even socially. Like I just quit smoking cigarettes, so that's right now I'm a little crazy. But
Congrats.
yeah, thank you very much. But I guess I'd like to ask, kind of off the topic of the record, has that always kind of been a thing? Like, I know they're your guys, they're your dudes, you're in a band, you guys take over the world together. I know what that's like, but I've always kind of felt like the odd man out because I didn't partake in everything. You always, the PMA and the stuff that you talk about, I can kind of feel that when you speak. Was that always kind of a thing with you in that scene?
Well, I'll tell you and I totally commiserate with you in that sense. But the thing was, and it sounds like really strange, but before I ever met Fletcher, I was kind of the class clown, and I was always the guy getting into trouble. Had no problem talking back to people in school. I did good enough with the grades and stuff like that. But I got expelled twice in high school, got suspended. Um, and so I was the wild child before I met Fletcher. And now I seem like the sedate one.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but I ended up, I went to junior college and had a really good teacher who told me that he thought I was a really good writer and I should do something with my life, and quit screwing around. And then so I picked up my grades. I went to San Diego State and surfed and joined a band and played parties and got my grades up to straight A's down there because I started enjoying it and learning. Back in high school, I couldn't care less about all the stuff they're teaching me and dissecting frogs and trying to learn Spanish for the 12th time. And, and I finally really got into reading, and I really responded to Emerson and Thoreau, who are my two. I've got pictures of them up on my wall, but they're the original punk rock philosophers of doing what you want and self-reliance. So that got me really into learning and school. And so I ended up graduating from UCLA. And you have to understand, for better or worse, the punk rock scene in Hermosa Beach and the South Bay is full of people who didn't go to college. A lot of people who are just having fun, or they're going to be construction workers, electricians, or whatever. And but that the same was with most of my friends. I grew up with all surfers, didn't go to college. It was never a deal to me. Hey, if you want to go to college or you like books or you don't like books or whatever, I don't care what you're into. My best friend has never picked up a book in his life. So I don't judge him for it. But I think if you're talking about the odd man out, I think there was a little bit of you're a college boy and you think you're better than us because you read books. And when it never was that way. And just because I'm an English major, so I use big words every once in a while. And, I think big words are just tools to shorten the conversation. If you have a word that can explain a lot of different things, why not use it? If you're going to use a wrench to work on a car, it's the same thing for me. So I think probably the same is true for my one of my role models and Greg Graffin in Bad Religion of, obviously a very well educated man, and he doesn't fit the Darby Crash mold of the punk rock lead singer at all. But you look at Brian from The Offspring is a PhD,
Yeah.
and I think it was kind of the new phase of a lot of singers. Even Fat Mike, I'm pretty sure Fat Mike had a degree,
Yeah.
and uh, and so if there ever was a bit of that, I think that's where it kind of comes from, of like of there being a like uh, you know you're not one of us. We're the street thugs, and you're the college boy. And but it was never something where like we weren't friends or anything. It's just kind of
Yeah.
it's like even this conversation we're having right now. I'm coming from the philosophy of side of Emerson and Thoreau and make the most out of life and carpe diem. And Fletcher's like, let's fuck shit up and break shit.
Well, I want to,
That's
I want
always
to,
been the
Yeah.
dichotomy in the band.
I want to thank you and Greg and Dexter and guys like that because, I mean, I don't know how Dally feels about this. He can kind of give his thoughts on it, but as someone that, punk rock means a lot to me, it like raised me, right? Like seeing guys like you that maybe, I don't know, you didn't have a mohawk and you weren't pissing on somebody. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I love reading about Black Flag and beers getting thrown on you and everything, but I also like that Rollins was kind of the anti against
Yeah.
that. And I love the fact that, a lot of people, no offense to this, but people would tell me like, oh, you like Pennywise, they're like bro punk. I'm like, no, man, like the lyrics mean something. And like Jim's got something else going on, maybe
yeah. I mean,
bros
that's
like
like
him,
like
but
like Chris said, like the song "Nothing." I was an altar boy in when I was at two different churches here in the South Bay. I was a born again Christian out of high school. When I got expelled, I went uh, to Calvary Chapel in Costa Mesa, which is huge and popular, and went through all that, and then kind of got disillusioned with the church. But I still had tons of feelings, and still do to this day, about God and spirituality. So if you look at there's songs all the way through that initial period where I'm struggling with that of you know of spirituality, and whether you believe there's a God, and if there's a God in his right mind that would create a world
Yeah.
like this. I've struggled with that a lot, and still do. And so I think that was an element that was always overlooked in our band of things that we've talked about and confronted in our lyrics. Um, you know, uh, and I really look back to, I always go back to 7 Seconds,
Yes.
and they were like one of the first PMA bands. And then you had a little
Yeah.
with Bad Brains, but then definitely Minor Threat and Ian and Fugazi, and that whole period. It seemed like it was uh, whatever you want to say about Fugazi and not wanting to stage dive and circle pit and stuff like that, I totally get that
Yeah,
100%.
me too.
It just seemed like there was some guys out there that there was the Derby Crashes and the people that were doomed and the Johnny Thunders and Dee Dee Ramone and people like that who were just doomed to a life of drug abuse and early death. And there was other people who are like, hey man, we want to have it be a positive scene and we want this to be a place of nonviolence and we want it to be a we want to support people and our friends and we were totally going through that, especially with the About Time album and things that were going on with Jason and you know it was you know looking back how many years ago on this album it seems like yesterday, but at the same time it seems like centuries ago. But
Yeah.
that was extremely confusing time for us because of everything that was going on in the scene, but things that were going on in our personal life. You know, I had just gotten married. Jason was going through a difficult time, and he was so important to me in the band. After he passed away, I didn't want to do it anymore, and you know that so that album came at a very strange time, and I think that's why the album it kind of feels all over the place.
Well, it was weird because I mean, like I got into the scene at 9 years old, in 1987, when punk was the most uncool thing in the world was 1987, and my father took me to a Descendant show at Fenders,
Wow.
and it was the final
Dad
tour.
of the Year award to that guy.
So I got into, I mean, I was never really the cool guy anyway. I mean, I was listening to Kiss before that, and I mean, Kiss was not cool in the 80s, and so I got into punk rock when it was not cool, and all of a sudden my scene is blowing up. I mean, I actually empathize with you on being kind of the odd one out. I've never done a drug to this day. I'm a drinker, but I don't abuse it obviously. But um, when all of a sudden I came back to school. My senior year was not, the fall of '94. So all of a sudden I come back to my school, and all of a sudden punk rock is everywhere. Everybody that there's two kind of punks that were in my school. Ones that just got into it, and ones that were way too punk rock. And like I'm like wearing a Pennywise shirt the first day of school, and they went, "Oh, they're trendy." I'm like, and what were you listening to in the spring when I was when you were making fun of me for wearing a Bad Religion shirt? Yeah, okay, whatever,
Yeah.
dude. And so the weirdest thing about that time was, I mean, I'm as a 17-year-old, I'm like seeing everything around me. I'm like, my scene's getting big. Here's what's happening. And I was stoked. But I mean, God, for you guys, I mean, it's like this is a whirlwind for you. I mean, you guys have come up with monumental record with about Unknown Road. Your scene blew up, and now you guys. I mean, was there this pressure that you guys felt from either outsiders or the label? I don't think the label, but
I think there was, but it was so kind of confusing and strange. I mean, to like be listening to Rodney on the Rock the Rodney on the Rock album was one of like the
yeah,
first punk albums out there that I got along with everyone else, and listening to K Rock, and then all of a sudden our band they Jed the Fish played what did he Catch of the Week or something whatever show that he had.
yeah,
Um, he played Living for Today on his our song off the first album on his Catch of the Day thing. So we were one of the first bands for K Rock to get played, even though they didn't play it that much. They spun it a few times that week or whatever. And then I really think that like then they played a Bad Religion song or something, and I think that was the first time Brett went like, I wonder if some Epitaph bands could start to get on K Rock. And then right at that time, Offspring were like, here you go. Here's this album called Smash that's just gonna blow your mind. Sorry, I'm getting a little glare from
it's all
the
good.
sun there. You know, they're like, here's this album that has 7,500 hits on it that are just going to go global.
Yeah.
And so that had kind of just happened, and then Green Day happened at the same time, and and Brett was working with this band called Rancid that I heard the I heard the first album, thought was great, and it was just kind of like, okay, wow, weird, this is happening, and then by the time we went in the studio, it was over at Total Access, where like Black Flag and Dio and all these bands, and Guns N' Roses and like all these crazy bands are recorded down there. And it was just kind of like, let's just go in and see what happens. We don't
Yeah.
know what it's going to be like, but it was definitely a crazy time. I remember Brett came down to the studio at one point, and it felt like he had all of a sudden become a mogul. I mean, he was the same old Brett, but now he was, you know, like Epitaph has arrived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he knew it was happening, and this is obviously back before Napster and everything else. So having a platinum record means a lot of dough for El Jefe,
Totally.
the chief, and so it definitely felt like something was happening, but I didn't feel like we were going to be household names or anything like that. I just felt like we had to put out a really good record that didn't stray too far from our sounds, but at the same time was accessible to more people. But thematically, I mean, shoot, I think it
Yeah.
starts out with Peaceful Day and um, has songs like It's What You Do With It, and it still falls into the posi punk, themes that we've been addressing already. So I think it's an interesting album compared to all the other ones. It's definitely, and it's I started writing a lot more lyrics, and I brought in some songs on that one that I wrote the music and melody and the whole song for. So that was kind of changing because Jason was dropping off a little bit at that point, and so I wrote Perfect People, and that whole song that song was about me getting kicked out of a frat party down in San Diego, and all these guys, in that whole frat scene down there. Oh wow, I'm being reminded to do a podcast with you guys. Sorry. Yeah, but so that was kind of the first one of the first few songs. I'd written a couple songs musically on each of the other albums, but that was the first time I really brought in a few songs and kind of increased after that.
Well, the cool thing about that was, I mean, it's like, I mean, the when you guys released, I think about a few months after the release of About Time, you just released Pennywise Home Movies, and it was really cool to watch you guys going through the songs of It's What You Do With It and your tiny little
Yeah,
shed they had. I
yeah,
mean, it was like really cool to like watch you guys woodshedding those songs and telling Fletcher, no, don't sing it like that. Sing like Jason, you
yeah,
sing it. And I mean,
yeah.
it's really cool to like watch you woodshed every single day, and It's What You Do With It. And I think It's What You Do With It is one of your and my all-time favorite Pennywise songs. I think it's just it's so positive. And
Yeah.
the thing is, the music I think reflects the lyrical content too. It's one of the few songs where it's like when you're hearing a Pennywise song, you're like pissed up, chug up like this with like it's what you do with it. You're like going, I feel happy.
You know what? That's funny you should say that. That's cool. I feel happy.
Yeah,
Um, you know, uh, I was just thinking when you were saying that we should make some hats that just say it's what you do with it. Because just relating it to the current situation,
yeah,
and hate to get political with you guys, but
I'm sure we all agree.
yeah,
yeah,
Fuck people that don't. It's fine.
yeah, yeah. But here's all these fires are going on, and
Yeah.
people are politicizing the hell out of it right now, and
yeah,
Yeah.
just the brush fires that we're having in California, which these type of things, these wildfires happen in Australia, they happen all over the world.
mm,
And a really terrible combination we have here in Southern California is if we have a drought and a dry season, a very dry season, and very hot. It's very unseasonably warm right now in January.
yeah.
It's very dry, and then the Santa Anas and the winds come in. This is just a there's nothing more than it's like a cinder block.
The
It's
perfect
like
storm for what's going on. I
yeah,
mean, it's
it's
yeah.
just like, and there was a fire chief a while back, like years ago, who said someday there's going to be a wildfire situation when all the elements come together right, and LA is just going to burn from the valley to the water to the
Yeah.
ocean.
Yeah.
and there's nothing we can do about it. Everyone can point all the fingers they want and say it's your fault, but it's almost like trying to blame an earthquake or a tidal wave on something,
Yeah.
at the end of
Yeah.
the day. So I look at all these people the last 24 hours of going through social media, and there is so much venom right now. Understandably, people are pissed off, but like that song title is a perfect example. It's what you do with it. Like, what do you want to do with your time today or
Yeah.
your fucking thumbs on your phone? Do you want to help people out who are in trouble, or do you want to go put more gasoline on the fire
Yeah.
and
Literally.
piss more people off? Like it is what you do with it, man. It's
Yeah.
what you do with your time and your voice and your energy of like, what are you going to put your stuff into? Are you going to be spreading all this shit?
Yeah.
And it sucks when it's friends of yours, like, and people you used to respect and being like, wow, is making a trucker hat that says some bullshit on there about it like the best thing you can be doing right now. Why don't you go take some fucking clothing down to the shelter
Yeah.
instead of making some hat that says some stupid shit on it?
That's actually where my wife is right now. We donated a bunch of clothes and all this stuff to a shelter. She's actually over doing that right now with my son, which is a very good point.
Yeah. So sorry to go off on a diatribe
Oh
there,
no,
but
well, no, dude, I've kind of felt the same way because I mean, we're all friends on Facebook, we know the insane dumpster fire that Facebook is most of the time. Like the thing that's really irked me lately, and now that here I'm getting on my soapbox, is that you know the insurance companies fuck everybody, and everybody dies, but that dude that killed the CEO, he still killed somebody.
Yeah.
He still killed a father, even if that guy is a douchebag and he's a CEO. And I have people that are like cheering for that guy, but then they're like cool with the fires in LA because it's all rich people.
yeah,
Not even
Like,
close.
pick your poison, man. Are you going to like champion, like, you're rooting for a guy that killed a rich guy? I don't know. It
you know,
pisses me off.
I really feel like Facebook, especially, it's like giving a megaphone to dumb. Like when you're ever been to a party and everyone's throwing jokes around or whatever, and then you like maybe throw some joke out, and you're like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. That was really stupid.
Yeah.
There's none of that now. It's just like the stupid has a megaphone and like I'm gonna yell this really stupid idea, and I get to send it to everyone. And I think I know this is a fact. There's some friends of mine who aren't the most intellectually advantaged people in the world.
Yeah.
Is that the nice way to say it? I
Yeah.
don't think that they understand that the world is listening on social media. I think they think they're just talking to like me over text,
Yeah.
but they don't realize that Facebook and social media is a public thing. So they'll just say something on there that is so offensive.
Yeah.
And I'll just be like, Ixnay, dude, like what are you saying? Like this is crazy. And that like you said, taking it back to that thing, I really love the songs that uh you can really identify with. And when you heard it's what you do with it and it made you happy, or if I listen to Do What You Want and I want to raise a middle finger in the air and do what I
Yeah.
want, or listen to a 7 second songs like Bully or whatever, and
Yeah.
just like, it galvanizes you, and that's what I think I've always admired about the punk rock scene is that the anthemic quality of like trying to bring people together. And that's why I hate all the separatism going on and the division that's going on, is because I come from the scene like, hey, let's everyone should be accepted. Like
Yeah.
if you're a college boy like me, or you're my friend who lays tile for a living and has never picked up a book, you're all welcome. If you're a big tall freak like Joey Ramone, or you're a crazy looking Johnny Lydon lead singer, or everyone's in there, and every attitude is accepted, and I think that's what drew me to it, because I was a weirdo, I was a freak, I I liked uh, talking back to the teacher and getting into trouble, and but it was more of a sense of like not getting into trouble just for trouble's sake, but just like taking away from the fact that you're not this normal everyday person and you don't want to fit this mold, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's what really drew me to it is like, hey, it's okay not to be the most popular guy in school, or you can be an outcast and still find a scene that accepts you, you know.
Well, that was
I
the cool thing about this record is that I mean, we you guys touched a lot on a lot of topics. I mean, there are positive things like it's what to do with it, and also like a song like "Try." Those are very, very, give it all, be the best you can be. But I mean, you guys are touching on drug abuse with Freebase. You guys are touching on searching. I think is just one of those unsung hero songs where it's basically just come at me if you want to try to get me.
Yeah,
Um, and I mean, like I said, I mean, the songs on this record, some of the songs that are like deep cuts are still my favorites. I Won't Have It, I think is a brilliant song. I remember like reading, I remember like I was telling Chris this before you came on that I ditched my senior breakfast to go buy the record. I was graduating 2 days after that record came out, and I didn't care. I'm like, I have a 2.2 GPA. I'm gonna go buy the Pennywise record right now. And
I'm
I
gonna buy you breakfast next time I see you, Chris.
okay, deal.
I owe you one.
I remember just like I mean, cool things like you guys did so many cool things like where you gave credit where credit's due. I remember like reading the word lyrics. I Won't Have It. It said you've got a bullet in your head. You did the nod to Zach Del Roca right there, which is
Yeah,
awesome. I thought it was really cool. Then you have like songs like Killing Time, which I'm like, I'm watching this on my TV and you're seeing the things around you. I was in a freshman in high school and when the riots happened and there was a full-on race riot at my school that day. Two teachers had a heart attack. I mean, you're just like watching this insanity around you. And
yeah,
from a young kid, and then reading your lyrics and went, okay, somebody feels the same way I do. And we're not that much of a different in age, but
yeah,
high school and 20 years old, 20 in your 20s seems like a milestone now compared to all those times. But I
yeah.
mean, you guys really were touching on the things that were a big
Some
deal in the
important
90s.
topics, and I always say before when we do album shows because we usually don't play "I Won't Have It"
Yeah.
that unless we're doing an album show. Every time I say that song, I just say, this song is a motherfucker because it is like the most, it's like an assault. If you really listen to it, what Byron's doing on the drums.
Oh my
And,
God.
and I think there's four verses
Mhm.
of just where Jason wrote the lion's share of that song. And it's just point after point after point, and it's going against, racism in the scene and you know different themes, but it's just a verbal and sonic assault. And every time we finish the song, I'm like, dang, we played that one all the way through. I can't believe that. And it's just and then Killing Time, I wrote
Yeah.
words and music to that one, and only someone who watched Reginald Denny get a brick to the face understands what on my TV violent images parade across my screen
Yeah.
or whatever lyric was, you know, only someone who saw that live happen at the time knows what that feeling is like. And I actually, during the riots that happened during COVID or the unrest or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
um, I and my daughters were really upset, and I had to kind of unfortunately, I kind of had to come from a place where, hey, I'm someone I drove through the LA riots. I saw it happen on TV, and I can't let you guys go down there. I'm
Yeah.
not, I'll stop at this door. I totally appreciate your desire to want to go out and protest, but what's going on right now has drawn the line to what Gandhi and Thoreau with civil disobedience had talked about into something that is completely different and something you can't be a part of.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's the thing about this record too. That I mean, one thing that Pennywise has done, along with say like bands like Bad Religion, bands like Propaganda, is that you guys have a tendency to just suck the listener in with your first line. I remember like first hearing, "I Won't Have It." A model father, a model dad, model citizen. This time I turned out bad. I'm like, okay, what now? So I mean,
we're in.
yeah,
Let's
I'm
go.
in. So I mean, and you guys just have a tendency to just do that on most of your music. I mean, the lyrics are just like insane like that. So I mean, this record was lyrically, I think it was a perfect t song for the times too. I mean, if a person like me who took those songs to heart and the lyrics to heart, it's it was cool to see at that time because I mean, a lot of people were like just trying to like say what was the cool thing to say at the time. You guys did what you guys came out just what came out, which is I think is awesome about you and Jason.
Yeah, there, especially during that time and in writing different songs, it's almost like you get into this zone where I've said before, it almost feels like it's writing itself. It just the words come out unfiltered the very first time. And we've tried to do that as much as possible. Not to say there aren't songs where I've belabored of it and had really problems like coming up with something that rose to that level. But the songs that really came quickly like that are the ones I feel like are Pennywise at our best. A song like Every Single Day, I've said to forever, if I were had to pick one song that is the purest example of me and Fletcher operating on all cylinders, that's one where he had the guitar progression and everything all boiled down, and I just went top to bottom and just kind of let it out. And it's a lot about wanting to lose regrets and focus on today. And if right now I would talk to a person who's suicidal or having those type of issues, I mean that's exactly what you have to say to people is that this next 24 hours is all that matters. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter all the shit that you've been through, someone broke your heart or you've been through hell or you're worried about the future, what could that could hold. What matters right now is you get through today, and
Yeah.
that's what that song is all about. And it wasn't in the sense preaching; it was more of about like us talking to each other because we had various friends who were like at the point, and obviously Jason himself,
Yeah.
at that point they were in such a struggle to get through things. It was kind of a put your arm around your bro and say, "Hey, man, you can do this. Like don't worry about you letting people down. Don't stress about things that have happened. Like let's just get through today and make today fun. And you got to find that fun out there and that life enjoyment instead of sitting around all day doing drugs and drinking.
Yeah.
And it only shows with what happened how important that message is. And I'll always go back to Every Single Day as being like the keystone of the band. I would say as much as Broham and definitely more than Fuck Authority.
Yeah. Definitely. It's I mean, go ahead, Chris.
No, I had a question. I'm the geeky recording guy, and I had no idea. I love this record. This record meant the world to me. I bought it like the day it came out as well because I found out about Pennywise because I went to an Offspring show in Indianapolis when Rancid was opening up and there was maybe 400 people there and
Wow.
Dexter had a Pennywise shirt on. So the next day I went to the store and bought Unknown Road. That's how that shit works. That's
Yeah, for
Metallica.
sure.
Metallica is how I found the Misfits. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that shit used to happen all the time. But I'm the recording guy, and I was looking at the stats on this album, and I didn't know you worked with Jerry Finn.
God rest his soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've had so many friends that have worked with Jerry. I've heard so many stories. Could you just kind of let us know what it was like working with Jerry and like who made the decision? I know he'd done stuff with Green Day and Rancid and whatnot. Like, was he a guy
Yeah.
that was on your radar, or did you make the decision? Who made it? And tell me like
Um,
how it was working with him.
I think, since he had worked with Green Day and some other bands at that point, um, someone suggested him to us. But my memories of him of just being the nicest guy, a real audio head. We talked about the Beatles, we talked about Green Day, and the funny thing about that is that if you've ever been in I'm going to stretch. If you've ever been in a Pennywise recording session, you know that we fight like brothers or brothers who are cats and dogs, and it's more of a thing of like if if you're not friends, you can't do that.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
sit there and no one talks in each other and you're afraid. But if you are friends, you can be like, you suck. You played that song shitty, and so that's how we were. And so we would have to do like multiple takes of every song, like a song like Perfect People or Every Single Day, like we would have to go through the drums over and over and over. And Byron would be like, you told me how to play it this way. I was like, you're in practice, you're supposed to go this way. No, you didn't. You're an idiot. Oh, I'm out of here, like just like blow up fights. And and I was talking to Jerry one day and Fletcher and Byron were screaming at each other in the control room in the tracking room, and me and him were behind the board, and I'm all, is it like this with Green Day? And do they do like this? And he's all, no, they do everything in one take. I was like, fuck, that sucks.
Oh, him and Brett co-produced it, correct?
Yeah, I think
Huh.
that was at the time when Brett was doing the version of producing, which is dropping in every once in a while, thumbs up. I'm going to go in the bathroom for a half an hour and I'll be out in a
He's doing the
little
Rick Rubin thing with
while. The
Metallica.
Rick Rubin
He
thing
comes
for
in once
sure.
every 2 months and sees what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, because
Which,
I know at that time he had started he had gotten back into the drugs thing too.
yeah, yeah. So that was going on. And, but on other albums, he was really hands on.
Mhm.
And so people are going through different things, but Jerry was just really great at getting the sounds, and um, he didn't work with us that much on pre-production. I think at that point he was, just about getting the sounds right and being a positive influence on the goings on when you had a band that was inflammatory as us.
Mhm.
It's really good for us to have someone in there that's trying to keep the mood lighter. And yeah, you guys are fucking crazy,
Yeah.
like that type of thing. Instead of we've like, for example, we had Joe Barisi on Land of the Free, and who I feel like that was one of our best records sonically,
Mhm. Oh yeah.
but their styles couldn't be more different. Joe was all business and he didn't take any shit from anyone. Whereas a lot of these other guys, they'll let us be as crazy as we want to be,
Mhm.
and dysfunctional, whatever. And Joe was just like, if we started acting crazy, he would just stand up and start unplugging his shit. Like, if you guys are going to be idiots, I'm fucking leaving right now.
Wow.
And so that was I think Fletcher quit the band 7 times during that recording session. But
Jesus.
yeah, Jerry was, it was such a tragic loss to hear what
So
happened
young.
to him, and it was one of those things that was just a head scratcher. Like, how could that possibly be? The guy's so full of life and such a positive, cool cat, and just a bummer.
How long did it take for, from the time you guys first went into the studio to the end? I mean, was it a long process? Was it a couple of weeks? Was it
I remember that kind of ushered in the era of us taking a lot more time trying to get sounds, especially Fletcher's guitar sound, and that's when we're starting to get drum sponsors and things like that, and we're starting to really and before when you would just do like 4 songs in a day, top to bottom, like
Yeah.
the first album, like you know this was like, all right, this is going to be 2 weeks to get drums, 2 weeks to do guitars, 2 weeks to do vocals, and 2 weeks to mix. So it was more like a 2 month process instead of a 2 day process.
That's weird because I mean, like I remember like hearing, I remember like putting the CD on back in the day when they had CDs, and I remember like the song that really jumped out at me as guitar wise was "Waste of Time." And it was like it's so fucking crunchy,
Yeah.
And I remember like going because I remember I loved Unknown Road. I loved the way it sounded,
A
but this one,
a little more metallic than some of the other bands at the time. That's what I remember.
yeah.
Like what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
it's a lot more chuggy than a lot of the bands that were coming out at that time with records. So was Jerry was that Jerry's like genius part was like getting the sounds, or did he work on other parts of just songs, or was about him getting the right perfect sound for you guys?
Well, I think you have to give Fletcher credit for he definitely has always worked very, 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 very hard on his guitar sound, and trying to get that triple rectifier really tight distortion, but enough grind and punch that it sounds really thick. And he kind of went to the James Hetfield school of the guitar should be huge, the bass is just kind of down here. And but like that exactly what you're talking about, that's the opening to Unknown Road. That's waste of time. If there's one sound that we have to be remembered for guitar wise, it'll be that's all Fletcher right there. And I think Jerry was smart enough to go like let's let Fletcher control how the guitar sounds, but that's him playing too in his writing style. That's always going to be something that's in our repertoire of sounds, and it was like I think looking back on it, I really think Gorilla Biscuits had a bigger effect than people realize. That we were really listening to that Gorilla Biscuits record, and they kind of had a little metal tinge to it. And
Yeah.
some of the bands came out of um, in the segue between the early 80s punk scene and into the late 80s, you had the Minor Threats and stuff like that, but a lot of bands went to that more the punk metal hybrid. You had like DRI and different bands like that had a little metaler edge. Trying to think of what other bands you would put in that category, but definitely the Biscuits album came out, and it just, even though it was still East Coast hardcore, there was something about the guitar sound and the velocity that was different. And I think Fletcher definitely threw his hat into the ring when it comes to that guitar style.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause like I said, for that time when it came out, you're hearing like stuff like Smash. Other bands that came out at the time, you started hearing the more metal thing, like with like bands like Strung Out, with like Another Day in Paradise. You heard the metal influence coming from all this stuff, and I think Fletcher was a pioneer in that way, bringing that kind of sound to the punk sound, and actually making it more sonic than like say Gorilla Biscuits. Gorilla Biscuits, you heard it, but their mastering
The
level was so low.
production, yeah, the production on the East Coast hardcore stuff
Yeah.
wasn't what you guys got with Jerry.
Yeah. And when you say metal, let's be honest, it was Metallica, Master of Puppets.
Oh yeah.
That's my metal. I
Yeah,
was
I mean
I was never into Poison or Motley
No.
Crue or any of that stuff.
that's
Fletcher was.
pop crap, man. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're at a
I mean, no
bar and
offense to
like you're
those
hanging
guys or
out with
whatever.
people and you hear Poison, that's great, but that's different, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and it was Guns N' Roses as well. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Duff is a punk rocker, and those bands in that scene, they definitely had some. They were really more roots rock and stuff, and so yeah, I think there's a little part in there that snuck in there of the and suicidal tendencies
Hell
as well.
yeah. Yeah.
So I think I know Fletcher's one of his favorite bands of all time is Suicidal. So yeah, all that gets in there, and it was part of our sound.
Well, the coolest thing about like what happened, like I said, you obviously were getting bigger at this time. There was no denying it. I remember like watching an episode of Headbangers Ball. Ricky Rackman has a Pennywise shirt on. I'm going, oh, okay, they're getting big now. And I was like, I wasn't sure how big you guys were gonna get, but when I heard the record about time, is that it was like I know Road and self-titled, it's 210 BPMs the entire time, fast, fast, kill, kill, kill. And then all of a sudden you come in with Peaceful Day, dun, 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 it's more groove to it. And actually, just like a lot, not songs that are always like fast, like say like Searching. Um, that's not a fast song at all. So to see you guys actually take chances on this record too, was
Yeah, I wrote Not Far Away as well. I think that's
yeah,
one that's kind of got like a surf beat to it.
yeah.
And let's be honest, uh, Black Flag and Circle Jerks weren't the only band in the 80s. There was and 7 Seconds and whatnot. We love those bands a lot. But look at Suffer. World's falling apart at the rift. So the leaders don't know what to do with
Yeah,
it. It'll be nothing to the world. That's not a million miles an hour. I
no.
think they had some really interesting songs. Uh, Bad Religion did on Suffer and Against the Grain and No Control. Like those albums
Yeah,
had
Faith
some,
Alone. Faith Alone's a slow song. So I mean it's like when you think
yeah,
about stuff, yeah.
yeah, and like Man on a Mission, and
Yeah.
they always had a little one or two songs in there that weren't breakneck speed, and I think we definitely responded to that, and we're like, hey, we don't have to play a Living for Today speed the entire time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I mean, the album gets released in June, and it's I think it was your first record to really be on Billboard. So obviously there was a rumbling going on, and so I mean, I remember like going to see you guys twice on that tour. You guys were with Joy Killer and DFL opening up. I remember the Citrus Pavilion. Somebody stole one of Jason's basses. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, and so I mean, would you guys see? I mean, obviously, so between Unknown Road and About Time. I mean, how much different was the crowd versus when you guys were touring for Unknown Road? I mean, like, was it like insane? Was it noticeable?
Well, it was noticeable in that there's always been a healthy scene in Europe and Germany and in the UK, obviously, and Spain and different people. All kinds of bands were getting bigger, in the punk scene, much more accepted than in the United States.
Mhm.
But obviously, the big push for us was in the skate, surf, snowboarding, motocross. All these extreme sports became very, very popular worldwide. And so the Taylor Steele videos, the
Mm.
surfing videos, that made us so when we went to Australia, we never had a small show there. The first time we went to Australia, there was more than 1,000 people there at every show. And so it was totally a result of being in these video cassettes,
Yeah,
and right as the DVDs were just starting to come out, and so that was huge. There's no better marketing tool than
yeah,
having your album being on a soundtrack to a movie, and uh, and so that was huge for us. And then yeah, but in the United States it was totally different because we were extremely popular from San Francisco and Seattle, Portland, and down the coast, wherever there was like a surf, snowboard, whatever scene. And but other parts of the country that just didn't get it.
yeah,
We could sell out the Palladium, but if we go to Oklahoma or somewhere like that, they didn't hear from us for 20 years. And but Florida, tons of surfers, or New Jersey, big surf scene, or somewhere where the skate scene, the urban scene was really popular, we do really well, or the punk scene was happening. But the middle of the country, it didn't happen for us for a long time. But um, that was a trip to be on tour with the Joy Killer, from Jack from TSOL
yeah.
being one of the first albums that I bought the Black album and brought it home to my friends when we were just kids. Whenever that came out, I don't know, I was probably 15 or something. And I remember we put it on my friend's stereo in his converted garage that he turned into his bedroom. We put the album on the his turntable, and it started playing, and Superficial Love came on, and we kind of like listened to it and started shoving each other. you know, it was like a spontaneous circle pit just happened. We just started like not even knowing what a circle pit was. We just started doing it, and that just tells you that, certain music can have an effect on you of like, we should just fight each other right now to this song. And, so just huge fan of TSOL. So to all of a sudden have Jack Grisham in your touring company, and then DFL, Tom Davis, Monk, the lead singer, I sat behind him in math class at Maricosta, and he told me I should listen to the Dickies. And I had never heard what a Dickie was, and I didn't not sure if I wanted to know what a Dickie was, but he told me I should get the Dickies album, and I got it, and I loved it. I mean, the Dickies album was so like there's another example like that album was so influential in the sense of melodic hardcore. I mean, that was Manny Moe and Jack and
Yeah.
all that stuff. I mean, it was so melodic and so fast, and they don't get enough credit from us. I'm going to have to start doing that more and more. And Monk turned me on to them, and he ended up his I think his sister started dating Mike D, and he got on that whole scene with the Beastie Boys. And next thing I know, he's singing for a band out there, and I never knew uh, they had together. All of a sudden, they had this killer record out, and so we were on tour with our friends, our heroes, and it was just a time. There's not much you can say about that. Of like, that's when the scene was really fun.
Yeah.
Being out there
Yeah.
with your friends, it was crazy. It was like a story every night. Like when people talk about, oh, you guys must have some good stories. It's like I can't single one out because you just have to go like, oh, you guys played in Pennsylvania. Oh, that night, someone broke out a fire hydrant and smashed the window of the truck, and then we, got arrested, and 19 things happened, and so it's like crazy to even remember how we got through that time. It was pretty nuts.
I
I'd
actually have a
like,
bootleg. I'm sorry. But
no, you can go talk about your
um,
bootleg, and then I got a question.
I got a bootleg CD at the record store where I actually bought About Time. And they actually had a bootleg CD of you guys at Santa Monica Civic on that tour. Um, and I still have it. It's crazy. And you hear my guitar player at the time. You're like saying, "What do you guys want to hear?" And he yelled out "Killing Time," and you guys actually played it. That was also that show also where you said any Grateful Dead fans out there, and everybody started putting in Fletch what fuck that fat hippie. I'm glad that he's dead. And you guys,
My one of my best friends in the world, who wasn't really into punk rock, he came to that show and brought his snowboarder girlfriend, who was a total Grateful Deadhead, like the biggest deadhead in the world. And I told him, I go, dude, don't tell anyone, but Garcia just died. I got the guys to, we're going to do a cover of a Grateful Dead song in
Mr.
honor
Gray.
of him. I had no idea Fletcher was going to say that. I think the audience was extremely confused, and that's why Fletcher said it because they didn't really cheer afterwards. But we actually did a really good cover of it.
You did.
We did Touch of Gray, and
Yep.
it sounded rad, all punk. And I remember my friend after the show said that his girlfriend ran out in tears. He said that she was so bummed that he said that she took off and said, "Fuck you guys for life. I'll never talk to you again."
Oh, jeez. That's crazy. I mean, but so, I mean, you guys do finish, you guys are touring like crazy for that record. I know, was it towards the end of '95 is when Jason left for his Demons or whatever it was. And because like, there's actually a bootleg video of you guys, I have too. You guys are playing the 930 Club. And Randy's
I'd
playing,
like
but
to see that. I don't have it.
I could send it to you, yeah, for sure. Um, it's actually really cool. And it's like just cool. And that's when the guy who was in Minor Threat for like a year, he went up there and sang Minor Threat with you guys. And you basically
Oh,
you have a beer in one hand and you're just having the mic, you're doing this with the mic with the fans, just letting them sing along with it. Um, and then, kind of like my fanboy moment was the next year I called 401 and they gave me Byron's number and Byron invited us to watch you guys practice. Um, and we went to watch. I think probably the coolest moment for me was Fletcher left somewhere, and you put on Fletcher's big ass guitar, and you, Randy, and Byron are. This is a year before Full Circle came out. You guys are playing "You'll Never Make It" and "Final Day."
oh, okay.
And I
Yeah,
remember when,
You'll Never Make It, I wrote, so that was probably me trying to work out that song with them. That's rad.
yeah, I mean, the fact that okay, we're hearing a new Pennywise song in the works and all this stuff. So, I mean, it's like what a time for you guys. I mean, I mean, between all the things going on with Jason and then the record. I mean, I think it almost went gold, right? About time.
Trying to look on the wall. I think I have an About Time gold record from Australia. So in
Okay.
Australia, all our records go gold down there in Australia and New Zealand. But US has too much of a problem in the middle for us to get gold records here.
I live there.
And as a guy who has tours with the band like Authority Zero, and we last time we played Oklahoma, me and our guitarist Brandon were at a bar and we got threatened by white Crips, so that was fun. Um,
There you go.
I didn't know they existed. Uh,
Okay,
I said,
now
"Yeah,
you
yeah,
do.
guys, I'm from California. I know where they really are. This doesn't scare me at all." Um,
I would like to know like that whole time period, Offspring's blowing up, Green Day's blowing up. It 93, 94, that whole thing. So then you guys are like right there in the middle of that. I'm sure major labels were just like bending over backwards, taking you out to eat and stuff. Like, what made you decide to stick with Epitaph? Like, was it tempting to try your luck with a major?
Well, it wasn't as much as you think. I think Rancid got it because Tim with the Mohawk and the great obviously wrote amazing records, amazing songs. They have the total package.
yeah,
I think um, obviously for us, we did About Time, and we would have been on a completely different trajectory had not what happened to Jason happened.
yeah,
I think we really would have the album after About Time would have been completely different, but final Full Circle became an album of mourning,
Yeah.
of just this dark, terrible thing had happened to us. And so, as much as I am proud of that record and put my heart and soul and depression and sadness into that record, that's probably not what we needed at that time. We needed to put out a fun, bouncy, this sounds great on the radio. And instead, we had Alien, which was a song I wrote about how the world is such a terrible place. Why would any alien from another planet ever want to visit here? So
But
that's
that
not the happiest
Alien
song in the world.
Alien on Straight Ahead though, I'll tell you because I mean I've been a fan since Unknown Road. I remember when Straight Ahead came out and Alien was getting played on the radio here in Indiana on X103, which is like our K Rock. It was getting played. You guys played the X103 like radio fest with all these fucking stupid bands. And me and my friends went and watched you guys, and you guys played super early, and then we bailed. Like,
Yeah.
I think Goldfinger was there maybe because we ended up hanging out and having lunch with Goldfinger, but you guys weren't around. I don't know. But I just remember that was almost like, okay, Pennywise is going to sign to a major. They're going to get their, I felt like you guys were there with Offspring and all those bands, and maybe you got left behind. But then when Straight Ahead came out, the production was there, the songs were there. Alien was getting played. The video was fucking rad. It was all over MTV. I just was there during that time period. Was there a lot of call from majors for you guys?
Um, you know what? A lot of time I was out of the loop. I'm having my first daughter at that point,
Oh yeah.
and I would hear secondhand, "Oh, this label wants to talk to you guys or whatever." But Fletcher was handling so much of the business then. That's where he really was doing a lot of stuff, and I was just on a need to know basis.
yeah.
But um, I think at that time also, uh, not to get into everything, but we had a real loyalty to Epitaph, and I don't think there wasn't anyone coming saying we're going to give you $1 million to put out a record.
Yeah.
I think they probably were to Rancid. I think Madonna's label offered them a bunch of money, but we really, after what we saw happen with Offspring, it was a very confusing time there. Of I didn't really understand what they had went through with Brett, and um, it was a difficult time for everyone, and I definitely, in hindsight, uh, understand what Offspring was going through in the sense of they had just put out a enormous album with Smash, like a genre-defining album that sold millions and millions of copies, and the sellout question just completely goes out the window in that case. That's a completely different monster. So and if you're not getting what you want from the label that you're on, you have to go to where you feel like you're being appreciated. And at that time, they didn't feel like they were being appreciated at Epitaph, so they did what they had to do. At the time, we had animosity for them doing that for a period, I know, and I apologized for that, of kind of slagging on those guys for leaving Epitaph. But on our side, we were like, we're never leaving. Brett gave us this opportunity, and we'll never leave this label. And in the sense of the whole of the several bands getting bigger. For every Offspring, Rancid, and Green Day, there was a Pennywise, Lagwagon, Strung Out. No Effects. Go down the line of all these bands who were very popular in the scene and could play a very big show where we play. And to me, it felt like that would be um, disingenuous to not acknowledge all the success that we did have, and
Yeah.
to be like, fuck, we're able to put records out. We
Yeah.
can go on tour anywhere in the world and have a bunch of people come. We're very fortunate to be where we are now. If the gold records on the wall don't happen everywhere, the platinum records and the limousines and movie star wives don't happen for us, I guess it's meant to be. But you know, uh, but at the same time, I don't, the guys that do have that, good for them. I'm stoked for Blink 182. Those guys were our little brothers, and going on tour all over the world with those guys. And we saw it happen right in front of our eyes, of these guys being this spazzy little punk band. You played so fast you couldn't even understand what they were saying. And then the next thing you know, they're, our little brothers are having screaming girls at every show we played with them. So I was stoked for them. I was stoked for all of us. At a certain point, it was like, hey man, we're all playing, and I got to quit my job and go and goof around and play shows and go surf in Australia and stuff like that. So, hey, if the big crazy money didn't happen, it was fine. And it was just fun that the scene was really positive at that time, and a lot of cool things happening.
I think it's almost taboo now, but to say you're an album band because just everybody's attention spans are so short nowadays. I've always been an album-based person. I mean, that's why we're doing this podcast, is because me and Chris have discussed our love for just going on an adventure for 45 minutes and all that stuff. And you guys have done that with, I think, your career. I mean, I love to listen to all your records and listen to them from front to back. I don't like to just go, yeah, I want to hear what to do with it right now. I want to hear about time. Um, what do you think? I mean, what can you attest to, like saying like how you feel about this record now? Is not to age all of us, but 30 years later. I mean, it's like and it still resonates. I mean, those lyrics mean something today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a trip to go back to certain things. I'm not really someone at all that sits around and I'm going to go and watch our one show from 1995, and try and remember what that was like. But I think as you get older, I'm starting to do that more recently, of trying to think back of, wow, what was that like? And it seems I'm actually working on an art piece right now that's about the passing of time. And let's face it, I'm not getting any younger out there, fellas.
Yep.
Um, uh, and now you do kind of like start to look back. But when I was going through it, it just seemed to go by so fast.
Yeah.
And now you kind of look back at those things and go, oh, what was that like down there? And it's just like every day, just socially, you're just trying to get through it. You're trying to, what is music? But you're trying to put out artwork that people are going to like, and you try and record it as best you can, and you cross your fingers and hope people won't say that you suck. And we got some of that as much as there's people out that loved it. We had as much people that said that we suck. And we still have it to this day, of people are going to say like, you're trendy, like your friend said to you for wearing that shirt or whatever. But I look at back at About Time as being um, an album where Jason really wrote some really heartfelt songs, especially the two you mentioned, Try and It's What You Do With It. And those were just two like insanely catchy, bouncy, fun, anthemic, positive, really cool songs from a very tortured soul who was like, if you have to I mean, when we remember Jason, he was the bubbliest, nicest, funniest, fun guy to be around. I mean, that was the thing. And then he also had this dark side that he struggled with on his own. And you hear this story all the time of people that they're not showing you their face that's out at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're struggling with their demons.
Yeah.
And so I just remember Jason as being such a fun guy to be around
Yeah.
and so full of life. And when he left the band, it was it wasn't at all a thing like we're kicking you out of the band because you're drinking or something like that. It was like, dude, please get help and get back to the person that we know you are. And if you're struggling, because he had entered a treatment program before the Joy Killer tour,
Mm.
and I had talked to him while I was in there, and he's, oh man, like these people are helping me so much. They're telling me how if I slow down on the amount I'm drinking, I'm not going to live to see, you know, the next year or something. So I'm really, I'm really stoked that I'm in here and I'm really great. And so with him leaving the band, it was like, hey, dude, get back, get some help. Like, let's, we'll have you back out here as soon as you're ready. But then when he came home, he was back in the struggle and various things happened. And I was still hoping that he would turn things around and things would be back the way they used, and we'd go on to take over the world together. I, and so when I look back in About Time, it's those songs have this bittersweet feeling of like, here was this band that was ready to take on the world, and then this tragic thing happened in the middle of it, even against your better sense of what you should do. And
Yeah.
that's what Jason wrote in all his songs. I need to try harder. It is what you do with it. Life is what you do with it. Why am I doing this? And so the emotional struggle there is really deep and heartfelt. So I guess it's one of those albums that just is so jumbled with emotions. It's actually hard for me to go back and listen to some of it. Some of it's
Yeah.
kind of painful.
Well, I mean, it's funny because I mean, it's you. I mean, I kind of empathize with your situation with Jason, because my Jason DeVore, he came out on the other side of it, luckily. But I didn't. I mean, he never showed his dark side with us, even on tour. He would just kind of go off to his corner, and we didn't know how bad he was because even when he was drinking, he still was Jason DeVore. He was still the same guy. And I'm so grateful that he came on the other side unscathed and all this stuff. But I mean, it's crazy. Like when you don't realize, okay, I mean, yeah, somebody's in bad shape, but you don't know how bad it is until either it's too late or until they get help.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's really, I mean, I wondering about something. There's always been a rumor about you guys about when he was going to come back, Jason. There was a rumor, and I never heard it confirmed from you guys. There was a rumor that when he was going to come back, he was going to come back to the band, and you guys were going to be a five piece with Randy on guitar. Was that true, or is that
That was my vision. That's
okay?
what I thought. I've said it before. I thought that was the best case scenario of that, because Randy had worked on some of the Unknown Road stuff and obviously a great bass player. And
Yeah,
when I left the band, Jason switched to lead vocals and was very good singer. And and a great songwriter, obviously. And so why not, And uh, right around that time, let's be honest, like the Sublime thing happened, you know.
Hmm.
And so to not think and different songs that we wrote in Unknown Road and About Time were about Jason's best friends having heroin problems. So there was, you know, a, a life or death situation was happening
Yeah.
during that time. It wasn't this trifling thing of, oh, this guy drank too many beers on Saturday. These were hardcore drug problems that were going on in our scene. And so it was a real thing of like, hey, man, you got to get help. You got to check yourself in or you've got to do something. And, unfortunately, for various reasons, um, I've said a million times, I don't think Jason meant to do what he did. I think he was preyed upon by local drug dealers, and he was out of his mind at the time. And I have personal relatives within the family that have been in that situation where you would say, like, in his right mind, if you could pull him out of that situation, and he would be like I would never do something like that. Jason loved his family so much, his mom, his dad, his brother. He would never, in his right mind, take his own life. And I think it was a tragic accident that happened. It was someone that was just under the influence of so many different drugs at the time that your mind becomes indistinguishable from a paranoid schizophrenic when you're up for 3 days
Yeah.
taking all kinds of ecstasy and coke and pills and whatnot. Your brain becomes a mush of chemical imbalances, and you start hearing voices, and it's a terrible cocktail to be under. And I'm sure he just had some crazy thought that I've heard various things. We don't like to talk about it too much, but I've heard various things that he was saying that he was going to another planet or something like that. So he was out of his head. And, you know, so the best case scenario was for Jason to clean up, get his act together. He joins the band, and we move Randy over to guitar, and life is great. And we come out with some great album, the next album, and life is peachy, but it's not what happened.
I
I, I
mean, yeah, but
no, I'd like to ask, off the topic of About Time, the thing that I always loved about Full Circle was that reimagining of Brohim, which I think has the song was already a classic for you guys, but then I think it became, I've never seen you guys when you haven't played it with a million people on stage. The recording session for that on Full Circle, it sounds like you guys and like 100 of your friends in a studio. Can you tell me a little bit about the recording session for that song for Full Circle, and was it cathartic, and was it kind of therapeutic to kind of, you know, make it a tribute to Jason, as I know it was a tribute to friends that had fallen previously?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, but at the same time, it's almost to relate it to today, it's almost like someone going back into the fire and seeing that their house is gone. You're just stumbling through it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
at that point we were just like, what the fuck just happened? How could Jason be gone? What do we do?
yeah.
Well, you know, let's go in the studio and re-record Brohim for him, and let's all get in the room, and you know, uh, you just kind of go, what did Jason do for his bros? What did we do for Canton, Colvin, and Nichols when we lost them?
Yeah.
We wrote a song mourning our brothers, and so what would Jason want us to do for him? He'd want us to sing that song for him. Let's go in there and do it, and that's what you got. And there's times where I'll be out somewhere and I'll hear that song on the sound system and just hear Justin singing that part, and it's
Yeah.
just it's crazy. I can imagine other people hear that and go like, what is that? And like, what's going on? And I'm like, listening to that going like, that is a cry from a wounded soul. That's what that
Yeah.
is. That's something that's terrible. It's so hard for me to hear. And there's different things like later on in our career where it was like really gut wrenching, and still is to this day at certain times where um, for people it's a big sing along, and they play it at football stadiums now, and it's like this bro this and bro that and all the above. But Jason was my bro. He was my brother. He was my friend. I grew up around the block from him and Justin, and their families were friends with my best friend's family, and they were best friends. And his dad just passed away last year, and these are real people behind those songs. So when when I sing it, it's all of that coming in together, and I try to remember that every time I sing it. That there's a real person behind that song, and it's not just some dumb broy thing. And whenever we get um, collared by that type of idea that we're this bro band, it takes every fiber of my being not to find that person and want to pound their face in. And
Totally.
I mean that in the most nonviolent PMA
PMA.
type of thing. But it's like, you don't get it, man. And I hope it never happens to you. You know, uh,
Yeah.
um,
a
then
couple
the
years
whole
a
growing
couple
thing will be a lot different.
a couple years ago, I run this thing called Rock and Roll Summer Camp where we put kids together and they play music, and some of them have never been in a band before, and it's kind of like the School of Rock kind of thing. But I don't know if you remember, but I think right before the pandemic, the closing song that we did was Bro Hymn, and there's like these like 14-year-old kids, and like I think the one main singer was a girl, and I remember we did this thing called music appreciation, and one day I played Pennywise, I played Bro Hymn, and they'd never heard it. Of course, they were very, very young, and they really liked it. They liked the whoa part, the anthemic thing, and then they wanted to play that at the concert. And we had a little meeting every day at camp before we actually got to the instruments, and I said, you guys can do that song, but we need to discuss what it's about, because there's a big history behind that song. And we had many kind of discussions, and the kids really, it really touched them, and like they ended up doing it at the show. But then I remember I posted a video and you reposted on Instagram. I don't know if you remember that or not, but
Yeah.
it meant a lot to the kids. Like the I teach a lot of them guitar, and I was like, check this out, Jim from Pennywise saw you guys play the song. So that song, I made sure that I relayed, the history and the meaning, and it's not just a cool song that goes whoa, like there's a lot to it, and I really
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
definitely. And that's a testament to Jason. And
Yeah.
like I said, if we're talking about the About Time album, that's all it is. He was the spirit and energy behind the band, and our Byron can drum as radical and great as he drums, and Fletcher as the fastest right hand in all of guitar. And I can yelp and shout and scream all I want, but it is the message
Yeah.
there that started the band, and he inspired that, and that's why I wanted to join, and put everything else I had going to the wayside, and like, Jason is such a great guy. He's so cool. I want to be in a band with him.
Yeah.
And so it was that, I think, the last testament to how crucial he was to Pennywise and everything we're about, that made the album.
The one thing, I mean, I wanted to first off thank you for your time for today. It
Thank you.
really does mean a lot. But I want to say something to you personally that as a guy that grew up in the punk scene, you guys became my favorite band, and they always that whole message, never meet your heroes. Well, that one was wrong because I actually went and hung out and drank, had a beer thanks to Fletcher at 19 years old, and we actually became friends. We toured together, and it's like I text for you guys. It's like the fact that you guys keep on making music and you guys are making quality music at that, and just honestly, I wouldn't be here without you guys. So thank you for your time and thank you for just making the music, dude, and giving us a great message to live off.
Right on. Well, thank you guys very much for having me. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I'm restocking all my vinyl as we speak. And so I love shows like this that dig into all the stuff and don't be afraid to confront everything and what stuff is really about instead of the surface. And you guys are doing a good thing. So I appreciate you guys as well.
Yeah, and then also I'll if you want to just text me your address, I'll send you that video cassette of you guys at DC.
I'd love to check it out. I'm ready.
Okay, cool.
I would like to bring up here before we let you go. I know you're busy other than Pennywise. The new Black Pacific stuff is stellar, dude. Like, and then
Thank you.
and the solo record you put out was killer. And we have to talk about Beach Life Festival. I know you're involved in that.
Yeah.
This looks rad, man. That first night, Lenny Kravitz is the headliner, but it's you and Milo doing acoustic sets. That's crazy, man.
It is. I want to make like a really Pettibone punk looking flyer that
Yeah.
says Lenny Kravitz, Train, Milo,
Train,
and
train.
I swear to God, I'm going to do that. Be on the lookout for it because it's
Oh
coming.
yeah, that would be
It's
rad,
going to
man.
be yeah, Lenny Kravitz, Alanis Morissette, Train, Milo, and Jim,
The Beach Boys. The
and
Beach
the Beach
Boys are
Boys.
playing.
And a site, put it out there and said, "Wow, Milo and Greg Graffin are playing this Lenny Kravitz fest. Like, what the hell?" And some people are like, "Oh wow," and other people are like, "This is so lame and this is terrible. Like, what are they doing?" Super mad. But the thing is, uh, I like festivals that have all kinds of music, man. At a
Yeah.
certain point, when you see a festival and it's every band and they're all from the exact same genre, I guess that's fun. I guess that's cool. But like we've had at Beachside Festival, we've had Jane's Addiction, Smashing Pumpkins, uh, John Fogerty, Willie Nelson, the Beach Boys, both with Brian Wilson and without. Um, we've had Joey Cape, Art from Everclear playing the Speakeasy stage, John Snodgrass, everyone, Trevor from Face to Face. So we're trying with this festival down there, we're trying to appeal to as many people as we can. I want my mom and my wife and her book club and her and my daughters to see Lenny Kravitz and Sheryl Crow because they love that kind of music. They're not going to listen to Agnostic Front, people. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My mom isn't down with East Coast hardcore. I know it's a shock to everyone out there, but she does love John Fogerty, and probably will be front row for Lenny Kravitz. So we're doing a different beast down there. It's for all kinds of people, but we have some good. We've had Caged the Elephant. We've had just too many. Oh, Violent Femmes. I love the Violent Femmes. They're
Yeah,
like
hell
one of
yeah.
my
Yeah.
favorite bands of all time. And so we've had tons of great bands, and it's just different. It's a beach festival. It's not for the guy who wants to stage dive from the speakers. It's more of a you know go out and have some drinks, some good food, and see a legendary band play, and maybe Milo and Greg Graffin on the acoustic stage. Something different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the another thing you're doing too is you're doing a shirt for for the wildfires right now. That 100% of the proceeds are going to help the victims of that tragedy. It's still ongoing as we speak right now.
Yeah.
How can people get that shirt?
You can go to pennywisemerch.com. And unfortunately, this is a design that we made at the last Malibu fires. This one seems to be a lot worse.
Yeah.
And we actually played a show for that one. And through those little shirts, we raised a good amount of money. So, if it's one thing to just donate, but if you can get a shirt out of it where you can say that you're part of the solution, not part of the problem,
Hmm.
why not? And if we can raise some good money for the for the victims and the fire crews out there putting their lives on the line for these people. Uh, what's wrong with that?
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much for that one, but also thank you again for your time. My love to you and the guys and your families. Stay safe and see you on the road pretty soon, man.
And I would like to echo everything he said, though. Like, literally, I tell people, and they're like, when did you become a guitarist? Why did you want to be a musician? I'm like, well, Master of Puppets and Unknown Road. Like, when you hear me play guitar, it's like James Hetfield and Fletcher together. Like, that's
Ooh, that
why I
sounds
really fast
Interesting.
right
quite a
hand.
picture.
But
Together in what way?
yeah, I just wanted to say thanks, like Dally did. Like, you guys are a big reason, like, I play the way I play and why I even am in a band doing anything. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the art. I also got to say, man, everybody needs to pick up your solo records. They need to pick up the Black Pacific stuff. Like,
Ras.
yeah, I don't think that you've ever touched anything that I didn't like. Even like doing the guest spot for Urethane. Like, I like everything you've done.
And Authority Zero.
And Authority
Yes,
Zero.
yes, definitely,
So now you
definitely.
know what's going to happen when Fire Sale puts out the full length. Me and Riddle's band, we're going to have a guest spot from Jim on the Fire Sale record.
All right, you know where to find me.
I know where to find it. I've got your number. When I sent the link out for the Zoom, I told Dally, I'm like, let me know if this is still Jim's number because I did a little thing. And it was. You didn't change it on me, man. I appreciate that.
Anytime, guys. I really appreciate you dudes hanging out with me and let me know. And appreciate you guys supporting everything we're doing. And there's more to come.
Cool,
Awesome.
man.
Take care, brother.
Take care, everybody. See ya.
All right, thanks. Bye, guys.
Have a good one.
You too.
See if he figures it out.
Yeah.
There he
That was
did. He
awesome.
figured it out.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was great, man.
It was really cool to he had some really good insights and stuff I didn't know about. That was
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love the fact that the rumor you put to rest, they were going to be a two guitar band with Randy.
who
And
knows what that would have sounded like.
can you
And
imagine this, man? They are a powerful fucking trio, or not trio of musical instruments. I know they're not a
yeah.
trio. Imagine with two guitars, because I know Fletcher does stereo cabs
Yeah.
on either side, but imagine two guitars. That would be so massive. Like, I don't know, man. That was the one thing when you see Pennywise, like, they're so metallic and they have that edge to them. If you
Yeah.
had two guitars, and I can almost in my mind, I know that Fletcher likes metal and I know Randy likes some metal.
Yeah.
It could have been a little more Iron Maiden-y, kind of like,
Well, and also Randy is much. I mean, Fletcher's a rhythm player. He's never been a
yeah,
solo player, and I know Randy can play some solo stuff. So it would
yeah,
have been very, very interesting to hear what the records would have sounded like. Like how much more of like would have broadened their sound, maybe more. But it's like that was awesome. And then hearing about just I love the fact that he finally put to rest about exactly why he left the band initially in the first place.
yeah.
That's always been a thing on my mind. I've always wanted to talk to him about it, but every time I talk to him, it ends up being about something else. So it's really cool to kind of get that perspective.
Well, dude, and everybody that I've had on that one time on tour that's like kind of an OG guy back in that scene, I I don't think that you and I are about the same age, and I'm in fucking Indiana, like I live in a fucking cornfield. But back then in that scene with the Huntington Beach crew and the Hermosa crew and the LA crew, like it was violent and kind of shitty, man.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it got well, but the thing was, it got better and then it got worse again
Yeah.
when all the jock dudes came in. I remember, like, it's basically, I mean, that song "Salt" from Good Riddance is basically it tells the story of like basically these guys would be basically uh hold hands and clothesline each other in the pit. Like, what's the point of doing that? It's like a high five your friends like a jocks at a football game. It's exactly what it became in 97, 96. That's exactly what it was. It was like I didn't want to. I actually stopped. That I think that's when the last time I was in a circle pit was because I just don't want to deal with it.
Dude, I just always reading like Get in the Van by Rollins and everything. I just felt like a pussy. Like, I love the music. I don't want to get spit on. I don't
Yeah,
want to get stabbed for punk rock. I want to
yeah.
fucking play my guitar and have fun. Like, I don't care about money. I just would like to live through the concert, live through the show, you know?
Well, I mean, he talked about Gorilla Biscuits, and I mean, that was the last time I actually stage dove. We were playing this festival back in the day in 2008, I want to say. I was in Dev Stereo, and Gorilla Biscuits headlined. And I'd never had one inkling about going to a pit or stage diving ever again. And I'm on the side of the stage, and I'm the at the beginning of the Start Today thing, and he goes dig it down. I'm like, oh fuck, here, take my wallet, and I staged up, and I fucking rolled my ankle.
You
So
know,
it's like,
it's not punk rock if you give someone your phone and your wallet.
no. Well, I just know I'm also a klutz.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I knew something was going to happen. I didn't know I was going to roll my ankle, but I mean, if I would have had this stuff on me, I would have lost him easily.
I had this kid one time when I was in high school. So like I graduated in 97. So, about time, unknown road. I was a freshman in high school about that time. And I remember this kid, I was after school, we had like this little time where we could hang out and I had my guitar and I was tuning my guitar and my other buddy had a bass and we'd always like sit there after school and kind of like we didn't have an amp, but we could sit there and kind of like, play music together. And this guy goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm tuning my guitar." He's like, "That's not punk, man." And I'm like, "Fuck you. I'm not punk then. I like what people consider to be punk music, but if being punk means you can't tune your guitar, then I am not fucking punk. Because I'm gonna tune my fucking guitar."
The the funniest thing about regarding Pennywise is I mean I became, especially when Under Bro came out, I became like the biggest Pennywise fan, and to the point like where I on my Converse, on the top of my Converse, at the edge, I put the Pennywise sign. And a guy in school goes, "What is that?" I said, "Oh, it's a band called Pennywise." He goes, "Oh, I thought it was White Power because it had the PW." I'm like, "No, not at all." And the funny thing is, he became my guitar player. He's the one who went with me to Pennywise's studio to watch him rehearse. And it's like, I mean, how weird is that? I just because the curiosity killed the cat. Why do you have this WP? Was it White Power? I'm like, no, it's a band called Pennywise. That's
Dude,
what it was.
when I was like a freshman or sophomore in high school, you know how people used to get like anarchy signs like cut into their hair?
Oh yeah.
I had my barber guy do the Pennywise symbol in the back. My mom's got to have a picture of it somewhere. That would be rad. I'd have to send that to Jim. He'd probably get a kick out of that.
Oh
Little
my.
little tiny Chris with a Pennywise cut into his head.
Well, man, but I mean that was probably, well, that's my favorite so far. I mean, I love Todd. Todd was great, but this one was just a lot more. You know, it's just hearing the stuff, stories about Jason. It's comes
Yeah.
from a sign of struggle and all that stuff, and just hearing all that stuff was like that was very very insightful to me, and that
That
was really
meant a lot to me, and I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people that watch this or listen to it. Like they don't talk much about Jason in interviews because I
no,
I always do a little bit of a deep dive with my guests, even though I know Jim and he's been on the show before and toured with him back in the day. Last night, sitting around, my kids went to sleep, and I watched like four or five things. I listened to a couple different podcasts just because I like to get into that headspace before I talk to someone.
yeah,
And there's not a lot of Jason talk on any of that stuff. So
yeah.
I almost feel kind of honored that he did talk about it to us.
Yeah, it actually meant a lot to, it's because that's one thing it's never really gone into detail when it's a band that you care for and love as deeply as like we love this band Pennywise, and it's like just to hear, really pulling back the curtain, and that's what Jim really did on this one, and I was like, it was really cool to get that kind of perspective of what he was going through and what they were going through with Jason, and not, you know, how Jason was at the time of his passing. And I just it's like it was, I never knew a lot of that stuff, so it was really really I was really honored that he shared that with us.
Well, I tell you a big thing about Jim too, the other F word, that documentary about becoming a father and being in punk rock.
Yeah,
I watched it when it came out, but I
yeah,
remember the morning that my then fiance, now wife,
yeah,
told me that she was pregnant with my son. I that night went to YouTube and rewatched it because
yeah,
I'm like, oh my God, I'm 37 years old. I'm gonna be a dad. This is freaking me out. And I just remember, I don't know, I remember find a lot of solace in really connecting with the way that Jim was and the way that he, spoke about being a dad and everything on that. And then seeing, Lars from Rancid on there talking about his story. And I remember I hounded the shit out of him when he was on the podcast about that documentary because it meant so much to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Jim's always been such a good role model for punk rock, and I don't think there's a lot of those in punk rock.
Well, the cool thing about the other F word too is that like I said, Jim, when he wants to, will peel back the curtain. And the cool thing about him is that what you saw on that video is what you on that documentary is what you get because I see stuff. He took the all three of his daughters and they went to Europe for Christmas and New Year's Eve. And then I mean, probably the funniest thing I actually texted him when I saw the video. It was a reel he did on Instagram of when his daughter got accepted in UCLA, and because he was there, he went to UCLA, and he's running down the stairs with a omelet with the flag, like he's like, it's like he's glowing, like oh my
Yeah.
God, it's like this is awesome, and it's like so to see that kind of stuff is it's inspiring as me as a parent as well, the fact that hey, we're in this scene together, but honestly, when it comes to being a parent, it's no better way to do it.
Well, and I don't know, I mean, I'll kind of leave it with this. It made me realize, oh, I can be a dad and still play music if it's done the right way. I can still go on trips and play music as long as it's the right way. I can be a part of punk rock and a part of this scene that I love.
Hmm.
I don't have to wear khakis and a button down shirt and an apron that says kiss the chef or kiss the cook or whatever. Like, I don't have to be your normal boring ass dad, which there's nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of guys like that and they're rad. I'm not that person. I'm not a normie. And sometimes that is an issue with my significant other that I'm not a normie.
I like that. I like the fact that I'm me and I will loudly and proudly wear a minor threat shirt when I'm waiting to pick up my son from school.
Yeah.
I am who I am. I don't think I have a shirt that's not a band or a label, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So what you see is what you get. I mean it was a really good time. So but yeah, good times today, man. It was a lot of fun.
Great times. And everybody's listened to this far. Thank you so much. We're going to keep doing these episodes. If you want to listen to this audio only, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever. It's in the That One Time on Tour feed, TOTOT podcast.
Yep.
And if you're watching this on the TOTOT podcast YouTube channel, throw us a like, throw us a comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all the bullshit people do. That way you'll know when we drop a new episode. I love the fact, Dally, that you got me back into this. I was burnt out.
Yeah.
I built the podcast up to something pretty cool, and then I just kind of said deuces and got out. And you're like, hey, let's do a podcast. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. And it's fucking fun, and I love it.
Yeah,
And
me too. Thank
so
you.
everybody out there that was a TOTOT subscriber and listener, thank Chris Dalley for making me get back on the internet and talk to y'all.
Right on, brother. With any I'll talk to you soon. With our next guest, and let's party.
Yep, I'll talk to you later, man. Catch you
All right.
later, bro.
Later.
Peace.
Peace.